With Jurassic World, it's really trying to talk about, how we let corporate sponsorship ruin things, as well as you shouldn't make things bigger and badder. At the same time, it's a movie that's made bigger and badder. So it's like
loaded with product placement.
Exactly.
Here comes the theme. Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Scott.
And I'm Max, and today we're going to play a little catch-up on what we've been watching, as well as discuss a new release that kind of ties into our voting results, our winner for the Listener's Choice episode.
What a teaser. I was going to say that this is our Sky High episode because we've both been traveling for work and watching movies in the airplane while Sky High. And it would have been a nice little turn, People would be like, oh, they're finally talking Sky High. Max convinced Scott to watch Sky High. And then we wouldn't.
Yeah, see, I would just get upset then.
Okay, cool. So I'm glad I brought it up.
But I was going to suggest
in such detail.
I was going to suggest we do a Mile High episode.
Mile High.
But then we might have to bring Miles back for that one. So
yeah, we can't do a Miles movie without Miles.
That's how it works.
Well, anyways, let's get back to that tease. You got me. You captured my attention, and I think I can speak for all of us who are listening to you right now. What's the new release?
The new release is Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Ah, so that must mean that Saving Private Ryan won the poll.
Yeah, since they're both kind of related to Spielberg pictures. One is a Spielberg picture, and the other one's produced by him. Yeah, it ties together, obviously.
Yeah.
No, it's The Lion King. It has to do with predators.
Right.
No, just kidding. Obviously, it
was Children of Men.
Yeah, obviously. No. Jurassic Park actually kind of played it cool for most of the poll, and the last couple days it started surging like hardcore.
We had a little resurgence. Children of Men was the clubhouse leader for the first maybe 5 days of the poll, and then out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, we had some social posts going out there, and the JP fans kept showing up.
The Jurassic Park Rangers really came out, and
and on Twitter, the Children of Men fans definitely. I mean, they did a good job there of holding a decent lead. But the web poll itself, which is protected with IP addresses and stuff, so you can't really spoof it. But
foul play.
That last day there, it did have some good results show up. So
yeah. Pulled away. I am happy that Jurassic Park won because I had expressed privately to you that I was hoping Children of Men didn't win. Not because I don't like it. It might be my favorite movie of the four, but we talk about it very often. It's like one of our go-tos to compare other movies to. Like when a movie does poor world building, we'll talk about Children of Men. Or when a movie tries to do like one of those long one-take shots and does it poorly, we'll talk about Children of Men and how seamless they did it. And I felt like, even though we haven't done a specific Children of Men episode, that we have talked about it so much that we basically have.
I mean, I get that. I would have been down for it just because I feel like there's always something new in a movie like that to kind of discover. I think I revisited it maybe a year into the podcast myself.
I did too. I remember my sister hadn't seen it, and so we watched it.
And I mean, it's awesome, dude. And we probably talked about it when one of us had revisited it like a lot. So I get what you're saying, but I'll never turn down a chance to watch and talk that one. We
can still watch and talk it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, we could just one day handle it ourselves. But our viewers, they spoke. They made their voice heard. And they said, "Hey, baby, give us Jurassic Park."
I love when our listeners call us baby.
Oh yeah.
This will be an exciting return for me. So
from the
cradle. This is an exciting return to the cradle of my youth. To face some of my greatest fears.
Yeah. I can't lie. A lot of people get shocked if I mention Jurassic Park would be cool because Scott's never seen it. And they're like, wait a second. I'm like, no. I mean, it's not like he hasn't seen it out of not trying. He did put a good effort in.
Yeah. As a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Like, he's not alone in this story of getting so scared that he barfs and has to leave. Like, it happened to other people.
Everybody barfs.
I will say, it's important for my childhood. Obviously, a lot of people our age, it's important for their childhood. But, man, I watched this VHS, of this movie every single day. So
that's how we're going to watch it, too, right? You still have the VHS? Well,
I honestly don't know if I still do, but... That is, we'll have to sub it out for the Blu-ray experience.
Yeah, I do have the Blu-ray, so
same.
If we do have the VHS, though, it's a natural,
authentic,
it's a natural fit.
Yeah, I'll just rip it and edit it with my VHS filter.
So, nice. Yeah, it'll be good though. I was a little surprised that I felt like the Lion King didn't get much love.
Yeah, we had a couple people reached out to me saying that they really hope we do Lion King, and I get it. That's also one of my favorite films from my childhood. It's an awesome movie. And
we still haven't done a Disney movie yet, have we? Yeah, like a Disney cartoon?
I feel like we got to get in there eventually.
Because Mulan was up on our first ever poll at 86%, I believe, when we kind of did that trial run. But it didn't get chosen.
Yeah, our Disney fans just must not be podcasting, man.
I mean, yeah. You're right.
I'm calling them out.
Damn. Shots fired is what we call that.
Yeah.
Well, we both saw Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. I won't lie. I had a very tepid response to the trailers, and then once it started to get negative reviews, I wasn't super interested. But with Jurassic Park winning the poll, I did take the plunge. But you had already seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that a little bit today, but I tease some air travel, and I'm always interested in what people are watching on planes.
Yeah.
So, Max, you recently did some international travel.
Yeah, I went to the Great North, Canada, the Great White North up there. Just a quick trip, not as much travel as you did, but I actually didn't do as much movies as I normally do. I only hit about 2 films. And I actually thought about going to see Fallen Kingdom while I was over there because it came out internationally, everywhere earlier than it did in the U.S.
That's right.
So I could have seen it.
A week or 2, right?
Yeah, but I was there literally the Wednesday before it came out, that Thursday. So I was just like, okay, well, I might as well just wait until I'm back home anyway.
It could have been cool that you could have seen it and spoiled it for all your silly American friends.
Yeah. Oh, you guys. No. So as far as movies, the first thing I kind of crossed off a list that I've been saying I'm going to cross off for a long time was Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Finally watched it.
Little hero, big fun? Question mark?
Every time it's come up and I say I've been meaning to watch it, Scott's given me a condescending laugh, yeah, right, Max.
Well, you can only hear it so many times,
Well, the thing is, it's not streaming anywhere except on the stupid airline app to watch.
I believe it's called GoGo In-Flight.
Yeah, the airborne GoGo In-Flight stuff. I was on American Air, I think. So they have 2 ways to get it, and I always use GoGo for the Delta flights, and thankfully it works for both because I didn't have the American Air app. So I was like, all right, cool. And there it was, Ant-Man. So I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's watch Ant-Man.
So what's the verdict? What did you think?
I liked it a lot, man. It was good. No surprise there. It's a solid Marvel movie. It's funny. Paul Rudd's good. The supporting cast is really funny. And it's... Sometimes the Marvel comedy doesn't always work for me where it doesn't feel right.
The generic kind of Joss Whedon comedy.
Where everyone is a smart ass is I think what they usually say. Everyone's too quippy. And in this one, it's there's quips here and there, but it's more people are genuinely saying kind of funny things. And some of they're not actually making jokes. They're just being funny, in the movie. Michael Pena is constantly just funny.
Yeah,
when he talks about
scenes of him telling the stories of how he found the British are amazing.
Yeah, the little end version of it too was just it's great. So that kind of stuff is genuinely funny, and you could definitely see the influence there from help me out here,
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, thank you. Yeah, you could definitely see that writing style in there, but I think, direction-wise, it would have been amazing to see his take, but the writing is still strong enough where it comes through with, a solid enough director behind it. So,
Peyton Reed, I believe, he's never had any like real cachet. Like he's not like a director that you're like, oh, it's a Peyton Reed movie. That's a Peyton Reed joint.
Yeah,
but he's solid enough.
Yeah, I mean, I might say that about like Bring It On or something, but
Yeah, but
but that's just me. But no, the movie itself, it's pretty good. I did like that the de-aging technology was really solid for when they had to do that early scene there in the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty limited, which works because if it's too much, it's weird sometimes.
Yeah. But they're definitely like Marvel's perfecting that. Obviously, they're going to use it more and more whenever they can. So it's interesting. I
heard I was reading that in Solo 2, they're actually just going to bring Harrison Ford back and de-age him. So
shit. I would let Marvel do that, but I know about Lucasfilm.
Ooh, juicy. We'll dive into that later.
Will we?
I don't know, but I've written it down now.
Okay, on the dive-in list.
On the dive-in, yeah.
Yeah. I like Evangeline Lilly a lot. I'm excited to see where she becomes the Wasp in this next film here. And I thought the small scale, no pun intended, story of Ant-Man was good. The villain was fine. He once again had the same powers, but this one at least made sense.
Pretty blah. Like nothing too.
It was
too much characterization for him.
It was cool that the villain had a tie into the mentor instead of the actual hero.
That's true. Yeah,
and I like that. Yeah, that's. I haven't seen that before, but I think also having some kind of. They had a slight secondary, like antagonistic relationship with the boyfriend of his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend. So there was an antagonistic relationship that comes to a good end with it and stuff, but I feel like that threat could have been pushed a little bit harder for Scott. For Scott Lang, because without it, he's just he's doing things that make sense, but the threat of not seeing his daughter to me just was never like present enough. So I feel like that just could have been upped a little bit, and I think I would have really, really enjoyed him, just that character arc a lot more.
Yeah, I think the one good thing they did is they made it so that the stepfather wasn't like an asshole.
Yeah.
Because it would have been really easy to make him just like a terrible guy and make it like rooting against him, but that's just not how things are in real life.
Yeah. He's an asshat, but he's not an asshole, exactly.
Yeah, but he's still like a good dad and all that.
And he wants
needed to be. You know?
He wants what's best for the daughter as well. So
yeah, for sure.
And that was kind of cool that like all three of them wanted what's best for her. So it's that's a good take there, and it's something you don't really see in superhero movies is like parent relationships. So I like that
for sure. Yeah. No, that's a fun one. I'm really excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp, which comes out, I believe, this coming weekend.
Yeah, pretty soon. I told you I'd get this one in before then, and I kept my word.
Buzzer beater Max over here. That's what they always call him at work.
It's true.
They call him Buzzer beater Max because he's always
show days
just before deadline.
Yeah. What about on your journey, Scott?
Well, I also got the GoGo in-flight app working on my Kindle Fire, and so I my normal move is to download a movie onto the Kindle from Amazon. You can rent a movie, or if there's one on their Prime service, you can download it locally. Usually, I've seen some that won't let you do that, but for the most part, you can. But then I finally got the GoGo in-flight working, so I saw a movie that I remember being excited for and then heard nothing about, and it totally fell off my radar, and I just saw it on the list. But Borg vs. McEnroe, which came out it technically might be it's a 2017 release, and it's a Swedish produced film and everything. And it's the big draw is Shia LaBeouf playing young John McEnroe, and it goes into the brief rivalry that these two stars of tennis shared, where Bjorn Borg was like, I think, because he ended up retiring at age like 26 or something, so he didn't have a long tennis career, but he won 4 straight Wimbledons and a bunch of majors, and then when he retired, it was right after McEnroe finally beat him at the next Wimbledon, and then he retired. And I know that there's not bad blood between them now, but at the time, McEnroe had said some stuff about like how Borg was scared and all that, and like the only reason he retired is because he finally got knocked off his throne and all that. But apparently they're friends now, which is nice. But no, I was intrigued by the idea of Shia LaBeouf in the role, and I do like sports movies. We've talked about some sports movies in our past. Mm-hmm. The sport kind of provides a nice vehicle for characterization at times, and they did a good job of it here. Like Bjorn Borg is this kind of tortured savant when it comes to tennis. He was like a real hothead in his youth, and then Stellan Skarsgård plays his coach, Lennart Berglund, I think is his name, and I am butchering that, but they show throughout Bjorn Borg's youth how the coach had to like rein in his emotion and stuff. And he's like, you can obviously be the best, but I never want to see you blow up like that again. And it creates a cool duality with McEnroe, because McEnroe is very famous for consistently and constantly blowing up.
Yeah.
So those two, it kind of built similarities there, but then there's differences. Like McEnroe seemed to always, at least at this point in his career, resent how he was labeled the bad boy or the hothead or the villain. Like Bjorn Borg was like model handsome and lived a very role model life. And McEnroe was like the bad boy, and he really resented that. So they did a good job of showing that and how their upbringings were similar but different in ways, and how it affected the tennis players that they became. And it was really interesting. There's no satisfying conclusion. Like the climax of the movie is their first time playing against each other at Wimbledon in a final. It was this long, epic match, and McEnroe kept his cool the whole time, and he lost to Borg, but he won over the crowd of Wimbledon, so he's happy at the end, and he becomes like more of a professional kind of. But like Bjorn doesn't really seem to go through much change. So in a movie like this, where it's all about this character dynamic between the two, it just kind of fizzles in the end. Like the movie works; it's shot really cool, with like a really good cinematography for the tennis, and a lot of good framing in the shots. But they just like, there's no real punch that they can deliver at the end. And that's just real life, you know? I mean, you don't wrap it all up with a bow all that often, but it's just sometimes it's a tough ending to watch. So yeah. I don't hold it against the movie really, but it does affect the satisfaction of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always kind of an issue with true to life movies, is if you want to tell an actual story. And it's not just films, actually. It's a lot of things that try to tell real life stories. Sometimes the ending isn't what you want. It isn't satisfying, and it's hard in a film to do that. I haven't seen this one, so I can't say, if it affects the entire picture. But I know with a lot of those true crime podcasts, unless there's like this amazing, mind-blowing ending, people just forget them and write them off. But
like
movies,
Serial season 2 is a good example.
Yeah.
Where I listened to like 11 of the 12 episodes, and I just didn't listen to the last one. Like I knew that there wasn't a bow,
Yeah.
A bow.
And I mean, with these real life rivalries, sometimes there is a really cool climactic moment, and sometimes it just kind of tempers out. But it doesn't mean the story's not worth telling. So
For sure. But what's really interesting to me is Shia LaBeouf is kind of a known weirdo, but he is a method actor, and in preparation for the role as McEnroe, he became a champion tennis player. He won 3 of the finals last year. He won Wimbledon, and then he retired for the filming. So it's just really nice to see someone so committed to their craft.
I wish that was true.
That'd be amazing, and that would be worth the movie. Like, maybe we're making a movie about the making of this movie.
I was like really in on this story for a minute, and then I realized you were completely bullshitting me. But I still was like, I want this to be real.
Still a little in on it.
If you didn't hit the Wimbledon part, I would have been like, damn, I didn't even know this, dude.
Yeah, you'd be like, wow, what a star.
Yeah.
Have you heard about his next feature that he's directing?
No, but I did hear he publicly came out recently to say his name is actually pronounced Shia, and people have just been saying it wrong for years.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm rejecting it.
It's GIF, not GIF.
Shia's next movie is, I believe, written and directed by him and starring him about his own life. And he plays his father, who he does not have a good relationship with. And it doesn't sound like a great recipe for his own mental health. But I'm super interested to see what happens.
Yeah.
Lucas Hedges is going to play one of the Shias.
Yeah, did you just pay someone to like release this as a story and hope it comes true?
I promise I didn't.
That's funny, man. It's built for you to watch. Whether or not it's going to be good is a different question, but it's built for you to watch.
And I mean, say what you want about Shia LaBeouf, but he never shies away from who he is, and
she's away.
He's like he never she's away. He's like an M. Night Shyamalan in that sense. He always does his own thing.
Yeah.
But it's in post production now, and Shia did not direct it. He just wrote and is starring in it. But if you can check out some of the pictures of him playing his father, it looks kind of insane. So, but there's other talent in it. Micah Monroe is going to be in it. Clifton Collins Jr. So,
some good talent. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But Borg McEnroe, not half bad. If you're not like into tennis or into Shia LaBeouf, then maybe don't worry about it. But yeah.
I don't know. I mean, even me, I'm not really into too many sports. I do love my Olympics, and I actually do enjoy tennis for that reason.
Tennis is an Olympic sport.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't keep up with it, but I can watch tennis and have like a really good time. I think recently the addition of golf. I've never been able to get into golf, but I know tons of people love it, so I'm not going to diss it. But I'm saying like that's the only Olympic sport I can really say like I don't truly love to just sit there and watch. Are
you big into the marathon?
I could watch the marathons, but they never play the full marathons. They always give you the highlights. So that's, if they did golf highlights only at the Olympics, I'd probably watch that too. I
bet you could find an Olympic golf highlight reel.
Oh, probably. I just don't seek them out because it's only been in this recent summer one. So that's a whole big sidebar though.
You used to be a big baseball fan, I know, and then it was removed from the Olympics and you haven't watched it since.
It's true, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of also a joke on me being Puerto Rican, so I'm fine with it. But
that wasn't intended.
No, I know. I'm kidding, man. Yeah, but what's never been included in the Olympics is reading.
Okay.
And not only did I watch another movie, but I also read a really good book on this trip, and I'm going to talk about that for a second.
I thought you were going to talk about the movie The Reader.
I'm not.
Kate Winslet, isn't it? Anyways, go ahead. What'd you read? Can I guess?
Sure.
The Silmarillion.
No.
All right, I got two more guesses.
Let's just cut it on that one because I don't think you're going to hit it. I read a book called Educated.
My next guess was Educated.
A memoir by Tara Westover.
Okay.
It's really, really good, man. I think she's about my age, and she was raised in a fundamentalist Mormon family where her father believed the end of the world was coming, so they were preppers, and he was convinced the government's about to shut him down, like just take him out, and so he didn't let his kids go to school because he was convinced this public school system was run by the Illuminati. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that's what he thought, but yeah, so like I
like it. That's good Illuminati protection for the podcast.
Yeah, just in case. But no, he Tara Westover didn't have her birth certificate until she was about 9 years old because they just never registered their kids. They wouldn't go to the doctor. They practiced very like natural medicines. But it's just a very compelling story. And I literally picked up the book when I started my trip, and within 24 hours had finished it. That's probably awesome. Like 300 to 400 pages, but I could not put it down.
Yeah.
And anybody who has had, I think everyone goes through an experience at one point in their life where you get to the real world and realize something about your childhood was different just because that's how everyone is.
Yeah.
Might not be to the same degree as Tara Westover here, obviously. But she manages to tap into something that feels normal when you read it, even though it's like a hugely abnormal situation. And, spoilers, she mentions it in the first chapter, but she eventually gets out, goes to college. She's like a Cambridge scholar now.
Nice.
So she's had a very successful life since then. But the book itself is kind of about how you can't really exist in two worlds if they are polar opposites. And it's a very interesting read. I highly recommend it for anyone out there.
That does sound interesting. It sounds a little like that. What was the Brie Larson movie?
The Glass Castle. Year? There's some similarities there, but
like their upbringings were definitely different, but they both had challenged upbringings based on their parents. So,
and even with movies that came out that are kind of inspired by something like The Glass Castle, like
sure.
What is it? Captain Fantastic or something?
Yeah, with Vigo.
Yeah, like that captures a lot of the whimsy that a child would feel in a situation like that. But then it's like this very much shows how a kid will think that for a minute, but then you kind of uncover the tarnish and see what's really going on there. So
yeah,
it's good though. I recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Was it recommended to you by anybody?
Yeah. So a friend recommended it.
Right on, man. Right on.
Let's put the spotlight back on you, Scott. What else you watch?
Oh, well, okay. Well, so I mentioned that I pre-download a movie usually for these flights. So I did pre-download. I've been a subscriber to Showtime for the past year or so. I don't think I'd watched anything on it for like 7 months. And so I canceled the subscription. So I was going through the list just to see if there was anything that caught my eye before, like I had like 8 more days or something before I didn't have access to the content catalog anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I downloaded Patriots Day.
Oh.
Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg's third or fourth combo punch there.
So you went from Borg to Berg.
Yes, I did. Well, I watched Berg first, so okay. Berg to Berg.
Okay.
But what's interesting is I first watched Deepwater Horizon on my last trip to Portland, and the only reason I watched it is because it happened to be on HBO, but then I ended up really enjoying it.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a Portland thing that also made me realize, okay, I'll dive into the Peter Berg thing.
Yeah.
And I do still have issues with the way that, like the reasons that these movies are made. I did learn a lot, so that's good. And it didn't feel all that exploitive. And Deepwater Horizon, I think, is the better movie. But Patriots Day is a very good kind of crime cat and mouse thriller because they don't they don't hide who the bombers are at all from the beginning. You know who they are, but you kind of see their planning and trying to escape and evade the cops. And the scene when the bombs go off at the finish line is like harrowing. They do. It's not. I don't think it's like one cut, but it's just very hard to follow what's happening because 2 bombs exploded and they're walking through the rubble trying to help people who are injured. And I mean, everybody knows what happened with the bombing there, but it was good. I like that they. It was just exciting throughout. One thing I thought would have been interesting is and they touch on it a tiny bit about how the media was like going on leads of their own or something and releasing names or footage of people
Reddit.
who weren't.
Reddit.
Yeah, I know. Reddit was the other one. Yeah, Reddit discovered who they thought the bomber was, and then I know the investigation had to release more information to prove it wasn't that guy because whoever they had found was getting death threats and stuff like that, and that's pretty shitty. And they don't go into it much in the movie. They do at one point. I think it's Fox says we figured out, we're going to release the name of the bomber. We figured out who it is unless you guys do something in 15 minutes. And so then they released the pictures that they had and all that. So I wish it dove into that more because that was such an interesting and kind of terrible subplot of real
life,
of the real life with the Boston bombings. But it's just a good movie. I mean, this and Deepwater Horizon are both just very well-made movies from a technical standpoint. I learned more watching Deepwater Horizon because I honestly didn't know the details of what happened with that drill. So it was cool to see everything unravel with that.
Yeah.
Patriots Day, maybe it's just because it was more recent and I was more of an adult when the Boston bombings happened in 2013. So I was more familiar with it. So I didn't learn as much, but it's still just a very thrilling movie.
Yeah. I mean,
so they're worth checking out.
I've heard, I forgot who it is. One of the NPR hosts, he did a Moth podcast where he talks about his experience. He was doing the Boston Marathon that day. And I think he crossed the line right before it went off, a couple minutes before or something. So he was right there when it happened. But no, it's an intense story, dude. And even if you've experienced it, seeing the retellings were pretty wild. I remember I was working because I was still going to school and working at the same time. And my buddy who worked with me through Reddit had found all these guys were putting the police scanners from the Boston area on the internet and streaming them.
Yeah. And because that's just open over the air.
Yeah. So we were just live leaking them at work, making food. No one was there. So we were just cooking and listening to this police chase. It was insane, dude.
Yeah, and then the final chase is pretty nutty too. Well, I guess it's not the final chase. There ended up being like a big shootout at like a small town suburb of Boston, where the one brother dies and the other brother ends up escaping, and he got captured maybe 3 days later.
Yeah.
But that shootout was fucking insane.
Yeah, just listening to like the radio chatter was nuts. So I can't. I mean, I imagine the movie that's probably the most exciting part in like a sickening way.
It's the climax of the movie, basically. Yeah. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm on the IMDb page, and apparently Dickie Eklund Jr. played an extra in this movie.
That's our buddy, right?
That's the son of the Dickie Eklund was Christian Bale's character from The Fighter. Yeah, that's insane. He actually he has a career as an extra in many movies. Huh. Patriots Day, Black Mass, American Hustle, Silver Linings Playbook, and The Fighter. There's not many ties between those two, so that's interesting. But anyways, that's kind of neither here nor there. I guess it's like
that's like a David O. Russell / Mark Wahlberg tie for most of those.
Yeah, so Mark Wahlberg recommended him to be an extra. Well, David O. Russell was in. Yeah, David O. Russell did The Fighter. I forgot about that.
So I think that's where most of those tie. But no, that is interesting.
Yeah. But anyways, another interesting thing is I was just looking at the name of Mark Wahlberg's character when I saw that. He plays a character named Tommy Saunders, who's not a real person. In the movie, he's a policeman who's at a lot of the scenes, and they just kind of use him as a vehicle to be able to go to all the different spots where the action was, like but there was no actual Tommy Saunders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I didn't find that out till afterward. There was a couple of really emotional moments with Mark. Like, Mark Wahlberg's really good in this, and there was a couple of emotional moments with him where they talk about like how him and his wife can't have kids and all this. And I was like, oh man, like that ties in really well. That's really interesting. And then finding out he wasn't real afterward was kind of weird. I was like, well, why did they do that? But maybe parts of his character are based on actual people or something like that.
I mean, also just drawing in the emotional investment from the viewer makes sense. So
yeah, for sure. And I mean, if it wasn't like based on a real event where everybody else plays real people, then I wouldn't have even had a second thought about it. But the fact that everything else is real, and they introduce these emotional subplots for the one fake character was a little funny.
No, I get you.
But no, it's a good movie. I liked it. I've always been so against this in Deepwater Horizon, really, just because of I always felt they were going to be exploitive and stuff. But I'm glad I watched them because they're not. They're both pretty good movies.
Yeah, I remember after September 11th, there was a lot of
United 93.
Yeah, a lot of those. I just didn't feel comfortable with them, so I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, I haven't seen United 93 or any of the 9/11 ones, but
sometimes it just does seem too exploitive, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just too soon is like a joke, but they made this movie in 2016. The Boston bombings were in 2013. It's pretty soon. That's too soon.
It feels too soon.
Yeah,
but at least they made it good, you know?
Yeah, they did make it good, which was respectable. So I watched another movie on the way back from Portland. I had a longer flight, so I had more movie opportunities.
Yeah.
But I know it's one you've seen. I watched Rush, starring Chris Hemsworth and Daniel Bruhl.
Yeah.
Ron Howard picture. And it was fine, but I wasn't like blown away by it. It got really good reviews, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it might have just not been my cup of tea, but it was sort of similar to how Borg McEnroe didn't have like a real like gut punch for the character relationship at the end. I kind of felt the same about Rush. But the other thing was, for me, Rush is a very slow build-up, and I was having trouble staying focused during the build-up. And that's when they're like establishing the two characters. Chris Hemsworth plays like the brash playboy driver James Hunt, and then Daniel Bruhl plays like the calculated professional Niki Lauda or Lauda. Yeah, and the action's cool. Like the racing's filmed really well. Very kinetic, but I don't know. I just wasn't. I never fully bought into it. Maybe. What did you think of Rush?
I liked it a lot. I watched it, I think maybe a year after it came out. No, but I thought it was fun. The racing was very like exhilarating to watch, and I really enjoyed the rivalry between the two of them. How as James Hunt Hemsworth kind of felt like a playful rivalry that was getting more serious, and that Lauda just saw it like a serious business the entire time, but still a rivalry like building up, and that worked really well for me. And
then it became a friendship by the end, which was good.
Yeah. And I don't know. I thought it was good. It was just a fun ride. Like I don't know. I haven't put too much into racing movies before, but I was like, this one's solid, man.
Yeah. What's the best racing movie? I mean, there's Rush, there's Talladega Nights, there's Seabiscuit,
there's Cars and Cars 2 and Cars 3,
Eddie the Eagle,
Racing Stripes,
Herbie Fully Loaded,
Days of Thunder,
Selma.
Wow.
I mean,
Any more thoughts on Rush?
I thought Olivia Wilde was terrible. I thought she did a really terrible acting job.
I forgot she was in the movie until I just Googled it. I only remember Natalie Dormer being in the movie.
Natalie Dormer was in the movie and was lovely.
Yeah, so there you go.
Olivia Wilde's accent was pretty inconsistent and poor.
Was she English or something?
Yes, she was an English supermodel.
That's right.
Susie Miller. And I didn't enjoy it. And her character didn't add much. I mean, there are very few female characters in the movie. Basically, it's Brule and Hemsworth's wives or significant others.
Yeah.
And they basically add nothing to the movie. So, I mean, it's not. I don't know. I mean, inclusion is always, a thing. But I don't know what they could have added. Like Marlene Lauda, who is Nikki's wife. And she has slightly more of a role, just as like a motivation for him. But I never actually felt like she had any agency or anything. And, that's probably how it was. So,
yeah,
they did a fine job of that. But I just wish I was more into it. I don't know.
That's fair.
It seems like my kind of movie, but I just wasn't.
Yeah. When you were describing Borg McEnroe, I kept thinking like, man, this makes me think about Rush. And then I remembered you told me you watched Rush. So I was like, okay, well, I'll see if he draws that tie too.
And what's interesting is they never really made a point of like when Niki Lauda and James Hunt are talking afterward, and James is like, "Do you think the only reason I won is because you got injured and stuff?" And like, I'm pretty sure that was the only reason he won, because he got to race in like 4 more races and gather more points and stuff. And they never really touched on that aspect of it, but it's all good. I found myself rooting for Niki Lauda throughout. I didn't find James Hunt to be a very sympathetic character, and I'm not sure if that was like how everybody saw it, or if that was
definitely was rooting for Lauda.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that was the intention, because they paint it as James Hunt's story mostly.
Yeah. And I think that is intentional, because like he is kind of. It'd be too easy to have it where you're just rooting for him and to make this guy like a bad guy. You kind of realize he's the one doing the work who deserves it. Yeah. And Hunt's the one who's like more like you said, a playboy who's just seeing it all as fun. But he does work, but he doesn't work as hard, and that's
for sure. Yeah.
It dips a little bit into like the grasshopper and the ant story in a sense, like thematically, but not telling that story. It just uses that feel to it where you're like, yeah, the hardworking guy really deserves it, but he's kind of a dick. And then the fun guy is who you'd really root for in a normal movie, but he's also kind of a dick. So
yeah. I don't know the grasshopper and the ant story. Who's the hard worker? Is it the ant?
Yeah, I think so.
Fucking grasshoppers, man. They can just hop around.
Yeah. I just referenced that. I think I might even be naming the wrong story for all I know, dude.
There's like the tortoise and the hare, but that's not.
Yeah, that would.
I guess that's sort of similar, but it doesn't make much sense, especially in this racing movie when they're like equals.
Yeah.
It's not like Niki Lauda was doing his laps at like 60 miles an hour and finding a way to win.
Just like using turn signals and stuff.
Yeah. But I saw one other movie, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because it is a new release, and I don't even think it's been wide release yet. But I checked out of my hotel on my trip on a Thursday, and then my training ended early, and I was on a red-eye flight, so I had like 7 hours to kill. So I went and saw a movie, and I saw American Animals, which is an interesting movie. There's a lot of interesting things about it because Movie Pass, the monthly movie ticket, not streaming, but like subscription service, bought it for distribution, and which is weird because they're not in like the distribution game. And so there's been eyes on this to see what it does. And like I've got the Movie Pass app and everything, and they've never advertised it to me. So I think that's super weird. But anyways, it's a movie with like Evan Peters and Blake Jenner and Barry Keoghan, like a lot of good young actors. And it was filmed here in Charlotte. It's based on the true story of a heist at a library at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky. And it was one of the most interesting movies I've ever watched. It's half dramatization, half documentary, because they have the real people in the movie, which is crazy. And like they do a lot of cool things with that, where there's like unreliable narrator aspects where one of the guys will be telling what's happening next, and then the other guy will say like, it definitely wasn't winter. And so then they'll go back to the scene with the actors and it'll change from winter to summer suddenly. And they do stuff like that that's really cool. And then the actual moments of the movie are like the heist itself is like palms sweaty, nerve-wracking excitement. It's just a really cool movie, and they go really deep on these characters, which I liked, and the acting's really good. Blake Jenner has been in a couple movies. He's been in Edge of 17 and Everybody Wants Some, and he's an incredible actor. I really like him. He's not just a Jenner, you know?
I don't know if I've seen him in anything.
Those other two movies I mentioned are his only other big ones. So they're both good movies too, if you're interested. But I'm not going to go too much more detail, spoilers or anything, because it is a fresh movie, like I said. But it was just really cool. I'm glad I got to see it, because I'm not sure if it's out in any theaters here locally. So I was out in Portland, maybe more of an indie movie crowd. And so I caught an indie movie.
Nice.
Yeah, it might be my favorite movie of the year so far. I really liked it. I was blown away by it.
We'll have to come back in a couple months and see if that still rings true.
Yeah, yes, we will. We're at the halfway point of the year, you know?
Yeah.
The Scoots Academy is beginning to compile its nominees.
They're sending out for your considerations.
That's right, yeah, in July.
It's competitive.
I'm sending for your considerations to myself.
Yeah, you kind of are, actually, so.
I am, yeah. But then, of course, the other movie I've seen this week is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Before we get there...
We really buried the lead.
Yeah. Before we get there, let's bury it a little further. Let's let it fossilize for a second.
Oh, nice.
Before coming back from my trip, I was in Canada on Canadian Netflix, because if you're traveling, if you're international, you can just switch it over. It just automatically does it.
You don't have to do a thing.
Yeah, so Canadian Netflix has a lot better movie selection. Yeah, they actually have like big release movies on there and stuff. Like they had, I think, both John Wicks. They had all sorts of things that were on my list of things to watch, but I didn't have enough time to just sit and watch them all. So I was like, damn it.
Did you catch anything?
I was kind of sleepy on one of the nights, so I didn't really want to put too much into that. I watched Jurassic World, actually. I knew I was going to go see the sequel. So I was like, let me revisit it, because I've only seen it once. And I enjoyed it the first time I saw it. I thought it was dumb but fun, which is just kind of how I feel about all Jurassic sequels in a way. My big issue with Jurassic World itself is I think the story would work a lot better if the dialogue was better written, where instead of like using subtext to describe what's happening and to get like themes across, everything is just stated like matter-of-factly. So
very expository.
Yeah. And it's to the point where it's almost distracting sometimes, where I don't know if that's just like Trevorrow's writing style or him and his partner's writing style, but like compared to, I mean, most really well-made movies, you just kind of, you will deliver the themes of a film, because most films do that, but you hide it, like. Yeah.
Well, it's just not as on the nose.
Yeah. Like Life Finds a Way is the famous one from the first movie, stuff like that, like. Talking about, you have a mathematician talking about chaos and stuff, which you'll see once we see it. But, you have a character who delivers these lines that fit for everything. But in this one, it's like, I mean, there's so much of it where these characters were just saying things. And I wish I had better examples. I could just pull up quotes from the movie. But I mean, I still enjoyed the dumb parts of it, like I said. And it just comes down to that I'm a big Jurassic fan, honestly. You know, I know some of these films aren't like good.
Yeah, well,
but I like them.
Good subjective.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a lot of these actually on Rotten Tomatoes, they do have like divisive scores where it's like a 50, you know, most of them. I think maybe Jurassic World and Jurassic Park might be the higher ones. I don't remember.
I think Jurassic World ended up around like the 70s, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. And then the others outside of JP, I think all did worse than that.
Yeah.
My memory of Jurassic World is that the first 2 acts were rather uninspiring, and then the ending is very cool.
Yeah, and that's
like
that's
the final
true.
sequence. Yeah, that's all I remember, and I didn't rewatch it.
It's always, there's just fun of having really cool looking both animatronic and CG dinosaurs just like attacking people. And you can build a lot of good tension out of that. So the films in a way kind of always deliver something. But like, here's some of the quotes from Jurassic World. Masrani says to Henry Wu, "You created a monster. Monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. We're just used to being the cat." Like, honestly, that's one of the more subtle lines. But it's still just so like in your face. Let me see. There's definitely...
There was a lot of stuff with the 2 kids about like why they were there and like their parents' divorce. That was like, we could have put these things together with better writing. Yeah. Without you just having to say it.
And they kind of did that at first with like the parents saying this is the last time I'll have breakfast together. She's like, "Hey, don't say shit like, or don't say stuff like that. You know, like whatever." Sure. But
like how you just censored yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, I didn't want to misquote her. Is really what it was. But yeah, you know, there's just moments where it's like she's killing for sport. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's like it's not hunting for meat. It's for sport.
Yeah, and there's just so many lines where I'm like, it's just a goofy, like, I can't take it serious when I watch it. I can have fun watching it, but I can't take it serious. I think that's what it comes down to.
And that's probably the difference between Jurassic Park and World is Jurassic Park you can take pretty seriously because it's a well-written film and it touches on like broader topics, whereas Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom don't really do that.
And, well, the thing is they both try to, but I think they miss the mark.
They don't succeed at it.
Yeah, and with Jurassic World, it's really trying to talk about, you know, how we let corporate sponsorship ruin things, as well as you shouldn't make things bigger and badder. At the same time, it's a movie that's made bigger and badder. So it's like
loaded with product placement.
Exactly. And so it is either being very metatextual in an ironic way, or it is just missing the point in its own existence. So I don't know. I just don't know about that one. But like I said, I watched it. I have fun watching it, but that third act really does kind of bring it together, even though it's ridiculous, even though a T-Rex and a Velociraptor team up to fight the evil dinosaur. Which,
the Indominable Rex.
Indominus Rex. Yeah. That in itself is a ridiculous concept, but I still have fun watching it.
At least they double down on it in Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, they do. And before we get to that, which we're about to get to, I did just go ahead and knock out every single Jurassic movie except for the original Jurassic Park.
So that would be The Lost World. Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and then Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Does Jurassic Park 3 have a subtitle like that?
No, but The Lost World is actually The Lost World Jurassic Park. But Jurassic Park 3 is just Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah. So all the sequels I know are not well regarded. I believe Jurassic Park 3 is the only movie my dad has walked out of in the theater.
And it wasn't because of the quality of the film. It was because of Jeff Goldblum, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Probably, but
he's not actually in the third one. So.
Some could argue that those two are tied.
He is in the second one. There's actually a pretty good diss against his character in the third one.
What are they like? That guy, he's a fucking idiot.
Basically. No, they're just like he's too into himself or something. And the other character like laughs about it.
Nose.
Yeah, so I figured House Tenet would be into that.
Yeah, maybe I'll check out JP3.
Yeah. No, the Jurassic series it's strange because it began obviously as the book written by Michael Crichton, and then that book, the first one, Jurassic Park, took off huge, was a huge hit. So they licensed it and made a movie right away. Michael Crichton had worked in the film industry before, so it wasn't really a big issue for him to like even wheel and deal this kind of stuff. But then Spielberg gets attached. He starts developing it. There's amazing documentaries out there about like the making of this film. One of the first things that got me interested in filmmaking was the Jurassic Park behind the scenes, as well as the Star Wars behind the scenes stuff. All the old ones that they used to just release like, behind the scenes specials and stuff on TV.
Yeah.
They're awesome. You can usually find them on DVD specials now, like Blu-ray specials, features and stuff. So these I definitely recommend checking out because they're like key for understanding how CG effects were like actually made. Like for the first time ever.
Well, I bet that is interesting.
Yeah.
At that time, those kind of making ofs are more interesting.
Yeah. And now it's even more interesting too, in a way, because you get to see someone like Spielberg doesn't just use CG just to use CG. He like plans out how he's going to do stuff. And that's the real way you're supposed to use tools like this. You don't just use a one take shot, just use a one take shot. You use it to actually tell the story and to get an emotion from people. So it's the same with CG and with any type of special effect. You have to know what you're doing. And
for sure,
the makings of definitely show that. So that aside, the first Jurassic Park, I mean, obviously it captivated people. It was a huge success. And then Michael Crichton's always been very hesitant to write sequels to his books. Well, he was hesitant. He's unfortunately has passed on a couple years ago, but he was hesitant to write a sequel to it, but he eventually did, which was The Lost World. And that one was optioned for a movie like immediately. And I remember not liking that film as much when I saw it in theaters. Because I read the book at the time. I had read both books by this point, and I was like obsessed with them, and it just wasn't as good. But now when I revisit Lost World, I actually like it a lot more than when I first watched it. There's dumb things in it, but it's really just Spielberg having a ton of fun making a monster movie. And he kind of drops the like everything's magical aspect of Jurassic Park, which is very key to that film, and leans in on like man's folly kind of, and a lot of King Kong type elements in it.
That feels like, and I mean, this is speaking from someone who hasn't seen basically the vast majority of Jurassic Park, but having just seen Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, I have similar complaints about it.
Yeah.
Where the wonder of the fact that they're in a dinosaur world is kind of gone, and they double down on the conflict is in Fallen Kingdom sort of similar. Like broadly, it's man's folly in trying to do something different with these dinosaurs. I don't want to derail you too much from that discussion, but I just want to mention they seem to try to do the same things in the sequels. Yeah,
it becomes more difficult, and there's actually a good YouTube video that just got released like a couple weeks ago called. It's something like, why do the Jurassic Park sequels suck? It's Patrick H. Willems, I want to say. He's done a lot of good ones. He first got known for doing his Wes Anderson's X-Men movie, like a short film. And he's done a ton of video essays where he even says like he doesn't do these to do them. He is a filmmaker, and sometimes he has thoughts on stuff, so he makes video essays for that reason. And so I actually kind of enjoy his essays more than a lot of people who are just doing them for YouTube views. And he has like a very good thought process for stuff, and I disagree with a lot of what he says in the video, but he still makes a lot of good points. And one of the big things that he's saying is, the first film, that wonder part is very important to it, and then you also see the folly of man in there.